everybody. Welcome to another Driven Hunter podcast brought to you by Mission Crossbows. And this week, we are joined with a special guest all the way from Iowa, Mr. Chris Duncan from Muddy Outdoors. Today, Chris, we are going to have some fun. We're going to be talking a lot about big deer hunting because you know a lot more than I do about it.
I don't know about that, but
we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the new products that Muddy's coming out with. Of course, we've been a huge fan of Muddy for years.
Yep.
We were just talking about like how many years has it been since we really got involved with Muddy, but before that it was actually big game
Yep.
tree stands. That goes back to, I believe, 2006. I think we joined forces, so it's been a long time already.
Can I make you feel old right now?
It's
I was just graduating high school then.
Well, I know I'm a lot older than you, but we don't have to tell everybody.
Yeah,
all right?
that's true.
Man, Todd and Ryan and everybody over there, it's just become like family over the years, and we hang out together and have a lot of fun. And your products, Muddy products, and back in the day, big game, it always stood the test of time, and the quality was just superior. We've used it. I mean, if we weren't in the business, we would still buy the product and use it. And that's why it's worked so well for us, because we don't have to like try to incorporate it. It's just natural for us. So, we appreciate that. And we'll talk lots about the different products that you got in your line today, but man, we appreciate you being here. It's going to be fun.
No problem. Yeah. You guys do a great job for us. I'm glad to be here.
Well, so I know you come from Iowa, and of course we live in Minnesota, and we all drool about being Iowa residents. How is it living in Iowa for big deer?
I feel pretty fortunate to live down there. I grew up hunting in south central Iowa down by Albia. So that area has always been known as a big buck Mecca.
Hotbed.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate in those regards. It's just like last week I went and checked cameras, and there was a big deer, it seemed like, on every one of them. So very, very lucky. Unfortunately, though, I also found a big buck in a pond floating on, last
serious?
week. Yep. So we've where you guys don't get EHD, we do, especially in dry years. And right now it's just crazy dry. Everything's brown, and we had this really bad in 2012, and it wiped out. I think that between myself and the neighbors and Monroe County where I hunt at, and that's just in this one area, we found 20-some dead bucks.
Are you kidding me?
Yep. So, and that was on, between collectively probably 3,000 acres, and that's just what we know about. So
That's nuts.
It's a bummer. It's a bummer. And, this year reminds me a lot of that as far as just kind of leading into it. I'm hoping, like right now, I was just looking at the radar before, and it's starting to rain down there. So I hope that...
I noticed you looking at your phone a lot today, and that's what it was. You're looking for rain.
Yeah, I'm
praying
watching
for rain.
Yeah, all of us are down there. So
I can't imagine, it's like somebody comes in and just poaches your farm.
Yeah.
And shoots all the big ones. And
it seems like it really hits for whatever reason. I'm not a biologist, but it seems like we lose more bucks than does when this happens. And the buck that I just found, he was a 4-year-old that was probably right about 160, and we passed him up. We passed him up when he was a 2-year-old. We have match set. We passed him up last year multiple times, and he was an impressive deer last year. I mean, he was upper 140s as a 3-year-old, and we're like, man, this thing's gonna blow up. And this year he showed up, and he, like I said, he was about 160. So it was sad to find him like that. And I'm hoping that it's fairly isolated. But after I found him, I asked around a few people, and the neighbor up the road, probably 2 miles, he found a deer that was he thought was 6.5. He had photos of it for 3 years. So it was a mid-60s, and hopefully it just...
Hopefully that rain shows up, right?
We'll see.
Man, up here we don't deal with EHD.
Yeah.
And I think there's a number of reasons. I mean, we're a lot colder up here anyways, but we don't get the evaporation process and the mud banks that you get from when that water line recedes and exposes those mud banks, and that's where those midges hatch out from, right? I mean, tell me, what do you know about EHD, and what is it exactly?
Yeah, so from what I'm told, and like I said, I'm not a biologist by any means, but basically on drought years when you have the exposed mud, that is where these midge flies basically become very prevalent. They lay eggs in it, and they transmit the EHD virus to whitetails. And it doesn't, typically what I'm told, it doesn't take too long for them to die, usually within 72 hours. But then I've talked to other people that say, if they don't die right away, that there's a good chance that they'll die later on.
And you find them around water sources, right?
Yeah, in
Generally
2012, I think generally probably. Excuse me. Yeah, in 2012, we were finding them everywhere, though. We were finding them in ponds. We were finding them in creeks, which would make sense because there was water there, and those deer get super high, body temps, and they feel like they're burning up, so they go to water to cool down. But I mean, I have buddies that farm, and they were finding bucks out in the middle of cornfields, laying out in the middle of hay fields. So I think when it gets
they're just dying all over.
They were just dying all over.
And it happens this time of year. I mean, it happens from this, first part of August through what, freeze time?
Yeah, and that's what they say. They said if you get the first freeze, then typically, you're good because it'll kill off that midge. But I know in 2012, we usually have a first freeze down where I'm at right around the 15th or 20th of October, and we did that year, and we were all going, thank God it's over. And then all of a sudden it was that first week in November, and it warmed up again, and we started finding them again. So I don't think the freeze was hard enough to kill all those midges. And then as soon as it warmed up, here they came back again, and that was just a second coming of it again. And I don't know how many deer we lost, but I know it had to have been 40% of our bucks on our farms.
Oh my God.
And then 2013 came around, and it didn't seem as bad, but we lost more bucks. But I think that there was so many that just weren't there that maybe that's the reason why.
Right. And now your herd is built back up here over the past couple of years. And now here you're faced with it right head on again.
Yeah, it's built to a point now where it's definitely pre-EHD, pre-2012 EHD again. And honestly, I think it's even better than that right now down there. Talking to all my friends down there that are pretty much diehards, we all have the same consensus that there's a lot of big deer in southern Iowa right now, spread clear across the state, and it's going to be very unfortunate if we have to go through it again. And I think that back in 2012, when we saw it happening, we knew it was bad, but I don't think we knew how bad it really would be for years to come, because it's not something where all of a sudden, boom, next year you're hunting 170-inch deer consistently again. And I think that's the most unfortunate part of it, is that it takes 5 or 6 years to fully recover to a point to hunt the animals a lot of us want to hunt.
Right. I mean, it takes 4 or 5 years to grow a trophy buck.
Yes.
And then they die off, so you get to hunt. I heard it doesn't affect the young, like fawn crop and stuff like that, those yearlings, as much as it does a mature deer.
Yeah.
And it's not just bucks, does too.
Yep.
And I mean, it's not just in Iowa. I heard it, Kansas has outbreaks. Clint Walker down there, Wicked, of course, a friend of ours. He's back in 2012 as well. He had an EHD die off, and I haven't heard anything from him yet this year. I should give Clint a call, but I've heard of a few other areas being affected by EHD right now, down in Iowa particularly. But I've seen it over where we hunt with our friends Darren and Sherry over at in that west central part of Illinois. So it spreads from Kansas through Illinois and Iowa, Missouri, northern Missouri. It can stay down there. I'll keep it away from Minnesota here.
Yeah. One thing we did do this year was we decided after 2012, we're like, you know what, we need to really try to diversify the areas we're hunting. So, because it seems like it is in pockets, like let's just take a few counties, for example. Let's say Monroe County, where we do quite a bit of hunting. Let's say Monroe County just gets smoked by EHD, and then maybe 2 counties either direction, it might not be as bad. And that's even on a larger scale. There might be a farm that just gets smoked in one area, and 4 miles away it's not as bad. So
maybe because they got rainstorm came through a month too earlier, and it gave it a little bit of rain that helped keep those water levels up.
So like this year, I mean, we've got some farms that we've gained access to that they might be an hour away, hour and a half away from where I typically live at, And we did that for a reason. I mean, it wasn't because it was going to be convenient to drive to those farms. It was because if you put all your eggs in one basket in one spot down there, I mean, you could
Could be over.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Man,
I didn't mean to start the podcast off with a dark topic like
well, hey,
this.
you know what? It's a great topic. It really is, because there's a lot of people right now doing a lot of praying, and they are worried to death about it. And I would be too if I owned a big farm down there. I know the Drury boys, they're big friends of ours. Well, they're doing a rain dance right now. They're hoping for moisture because they are faced with EHD just like you are. And that's got to be crazy. I mean, we have our own sets of issues up here. We're dealing with CWD in just the adjacent county to where we live. And we're scared of it because we're more paranoid about the state coming in and, you know, depleting our deer herd and affecting our deer herd here, you know, locally, which everybody, you know, naturally is. And not enough is really known about CWD yet. Yeah. I know that, you know, there's being a lot more focus, and there's a lot of people that are a little bit more worried than they ever have been before, from the management side and landowner side to, you know, the actual hunter.
It's definitely a hot topic right now.
It is. And we need to pay attention to it as hunters, and understand it a little bit more and know what we got to do to keep it from spreading. Yeah. I know Minnesota just recently has put more restrictions on transportation in and out of state of wild game, where, you know, we never used to think, hey, shoot a deer right across the river. I mean, Wisconsin, Buffalo County here is 5 minutes from here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
You can't just go over and shoot a deer over there and bring it back in the state here and think that, not, you know, take it to your processor or your taxidermist. Now, you know, you bring in something in from out of state, I believe you gotta go through the process of having it, you know, processed and skull plates cleaned and a lot of other things, and they're trying to control the spread of the disease. So, you know, CWD is definitely a topic that we're going to be dealing with. Obviously, EHD and everything else. I mean, we all love whitetail deer.
Yes.
But there's some stuff that goes along with it too, right?
There is. It seems like there's so many things against these animals, but what do you do? You know,
they're hard enough to kill, or not hard enough to shoot a big buck, of course. But then you got to deal with all these other parameters and stuff. But you know, Iowa, where you live, is just, I know that there's been a lot of recent focus on Iowa. Of course, we've been part of it. You know, over the years, we've hunted a lot in Iowa.
Yep.
We just, you know, get a tag every so often. It's
about
tough.
Is it about 5 years now
for an archery tag? You got
okay, yeah,
5
right.
years. Wow, that seems like that's a long wait for one tag.
Yeah. Usually, the guys I talk to, they you know, they say, man, it's a long wait. The archery hunters, they say it's a long wait, but typically when they draw that tag, it's worth it. So I think.
Right. If you're there, I always said the magical day to go to Iowa with an archery tag is November 10th. I don't know. It's always been my favorite day.
Yep.
It's
That's a good day.
Deer. I've never seen so many big bucks on their feet as I have when I've been sitting in the stand in Iowa. Just a couple years ago, I took a really nice deer right down in your area.
Okay.
On Larry Pokerback's farm.
Do you know what county that is by chance?
It's just by Osceola there.
Oh, that's yep. So Clark County area.
That's
good.
Unit
Zone 5. Yep.
It was you know, peak of the rut, and they were just cruising. And I mean, you know, if you messed up on one big one, you just sat tight, and it wouldn't be an hour later, and there'd be another big one coming by. So
yeah,
I've never seen anything like it. And of course, you know, it's a lot different hunting up here. You know, we have to deal with this bluff country and a lot of hills and ridges and ravines and stuff. And these deer, you know, they use that to their advantage up here. I always said that hunting up here in the bluff country is probably the hardest hunting anywhere there is for whitetails. And it's not that the whitetails themselves are harder to hunt, you know, because they're not any smarter than a deer in Iowa, but they use that ground to their advantage. And of course, the wind and stuff is so much trickier to outsmart them, and they'll catch you a lot easier. And they got the visual on you, which you're not hunting them on flat ground with true winds. You're in these, you know, hills and stuff where it's definitely tricky. And I I'll tell you, we'll talk a little bit about that today. We're going to be actually touching on some of your new muddy bull blinds and the penthouses that you talk about. One way to fool a deer in their nose is getting in these blinds that you had. I think that's going to be a cool topic to talk about, because that's honestly, that's the future of where everything's going. Is these blinds. So anyways, let's talk.
Going. Speaking on your point though about where you're living at up here, that's one thing I noticed on the drive up. I mentioned to Taylor when we were driving up. I said these deer up here seem like they would be so much harder to hunt than where I'm at down there, because down there I can hunt. There are big pockets of timber, and those deer I've found out are pretty tough to hunt, even compared to, they're not as hard as up here, but like what we started doing is just trying to find big, wide open areas that have draws and mix of CRP with ag and cattle pasture, and then it's just so much easier to figure out where the deer are going to go.
Right.
And it just ups your odds so much.
And finding those funnels are easy. It seems like easier. You can actually look at a topo of Iowa or northern Missouri where you hunt, and you can kind of see those funnel situations right from the topo, and then go in and kind of eliminate. It's like bass fishermen do. It kind of eliminate a lot of that dead water and a lot of that dead woods, and just go right to those little key spots or funnels or pinches, and get set up in those areas and play the wind, and bam, just be there at the right time of year.
Yeah, just wait till the time's right and move in.
That's cool. Let me ask you, if you don't mind, what is Iowa your favorite state to hunt, or is there another state that you like?
I wish I knew. I've never really left. I don't.
I wouldn't either, man. If I lived there and could get 3 tags.
Yeah, so I'm not a landowner, so I only get 2. But yeah, if you're a landowner, you get 3. And Todd, who owns Muddy,
you need to buy some land, and I got a deal for you, because I am a realtor now, and I can sell you some land.
We might need to talk then. Yeah, Todd makes fun of me because when I first started working here, he goes, "Are you comfortable leaving the state?" And he's just joking, obviously. But I remember we had to fly to, SHOT Show in Vegas. That's the first time I'd been there. Flew to Kentucky for ATA show, and how Todd is. He's always poking at you a little bit. So.
Yeah, right. I definitely know that's Todd.
Yeah, so he was poking jabs at me that I wasn't going to be comfortable leaving the state of Iowa. So yeah,
this is your first time out of the state. I mean, welcome to Minnesota.
Yeah, thank you.
No, you've been here before.
But yeah, my favorite state to hunt, honestly, the only places I've ever hunted are Iowa for whitetail, and I went to Montana for mule deer, and that's been about all I've done. Turkey hunted a few different states, but
so your favorite state is Iowa to hunt.
Yeah.
Your second favorite state to hunt is Iowa, and your third favorite state happens to be Iowa.
Yeah. I really have no plans of leaving unless all the deer die VHD, and then I might just come up here. I don't know.
Everybody that's listening right now envies you. Okay, including myself. I don't blame you. I wouldn't leave Iowa either if I lived there. But we'll talk a little bit more about where we're going to hunt this year.
What about you?
There's a lot of Iowa's got to be in that top 1 or 2 or 3. But I've been fortunate enough to get the chance to hunt different places. But here in Minnesota, you get 1 tag.
Yeah.
And I tell people, hey, people get rather bored with driven if they only seen 1 deer hunt a year, because that's all we can do is harvest 1 buck, per hunter. So that's why I had so many kids. And we get more tags that way.
Yep.
Fill the freezer.
Exactly.
But no, it's great hunting up here. And this is home. It's where I grew up, and I'm used to hunting here. It's tradition up here, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Is this the area you grew up in?
I grew up right on this very farm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's neat.
Shot my first squirrel about 50 yards behind us here.
So you know this area very well.
Oh yeah, I know this area very well. I know the neighbors very well.
That's cool. That's
and
good.
Yeah, it's a great place to raise your kids.
Yep.
Great school systems, but more importantly, we're perfectly centrally located for hunting big deer. Not just here in our home state, southeastern part of the state of Minnesota here, but also Buffalo County, Wisconsin, which is the #1 county in the world for P&Ys.
Yep.
Is just 10 minutes away to the east, and then if I go 45 minutes south, I'm into Iowa.
Yeah.
If I can get lucky to draw a tag. No, that's that Elmkey area, and that's where I'm selling real estate now. But that area is kind of a sleeper. I know there's a big focus to southern Iowa, but the northeastern corner of Iowa is pretty hot, and it's a lot like Buffalo County. It's really, bluff country and it's rugged country, but of course there's a lot of big mature deer in there, and I think that that is an area that has been overlooked a little bit, and so we're excited about being down there. And I've hunted there the last year and saw some big deer, and got some friends that live down there, and I'm going to focus in on selling real estate in that country, and it's because I think there's some opportunity there.
Yeah.
And you can buy land a lot cheaper there than you can here in Minnesota. It's just there's just a difference in price. So,
and there's just as many big deer there. I mean.
What's that?
There's just as many big deer across the border there.
There's probably more.
Yeah.
There's certainly more than there is here in Minnesota. We get more hunting pressure because we have a longer gun season here. Our gun season happens. It happens during the rut. Yeah, that's the bad thing that we got going for us here in Minnesota. Honestly, is that we put a lot of pressure with firearms on our deer during the rut period, and our gun season usually here in the southeastern side comes in around that first weekend of November.
Oh man,
right at
prime
the peak.
Time. Yep.
And then they get hunted the entire month of November with guns, and towards the end it's muzzleloader, but into that first week of December. So there's a ton of pressure, and there's a lot of hunters out there.
Can you use a bow during gun season or not?
You can. You gotta wear orange, but that is nice that you can go out there. And
you've probably really started to focus more on October than as an archer. I mean,
I try to kill them early season.
Yeah.
You've seen what we've done here recently. I mean, back-to-back years, Nicole and myself just tagging giants that first week of the season. And we're going to get into, that's a good segue about talking about, some of our favorite times of the year to hunt and why. I kind of like to pick your brain about that because I'm sure you got some good input on when you like your favorite times to get out there in the field. But I think that, looking at it from the old days, there wasn't a lot of guys that like to go out early season.
No.
They don't want it. They don't want to get out there. It was hot. They don't want it. It was buggy. They wanted wait till that frost, killed off the leaves and their foliage. And it seemed more like deer hunting. You know?
Yep.
You felt better as a hunter going out there in a cool, crisp morning and seeing the steam come out of your mouth and stuff like that, and instead of going out there and sweating to death. But honestly, you know better than anybody that there's some real opportunity to take some giant bucks well ahead of that period in that early season when they're more patternable, and catching them when they're not rutting and locked down with a doe. They're
more predictable.
Totally.
If you can find one moving in daylight, and it wasn't until probably 2000, honestly, it was probably 4 years ago that we really started figuring it out. I mean, because back in the day, I did extreme one way to the extreme the other way, where when I first started bow hunting, I would go out every chance I got, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and I think I obviously messed up a lot. And then I got to the point where I said, I started reading different things, and then, everybody talked about the October lull and, hey, just you're wasting your time right now. So then I just said, I'm not even going to go till the rut. I went off to college and whatever else, and I wasn't back until I said, okay, these are the 10 days I'm going to hunt. And I started, I think just as a bow hunter itself, I figured out more how to shoot big deer at that point. But I started saying, okay, well, that's why I'm killing big deer now, because I'm staying out.
Well, that's part of it.
That's part of it.
Yep.
But now it's to a point where if you find one moving in daylight, you need to move on him, because you might have one there October 1st through the 10th that you're catching in daylight, but then all of a sudden, boom, he might get bumped out too. So if you can catch one moving in daylight and move in on him, and what we've started doing is small, basically we call them kill plots, small green plots that...
How big are they? Half acre?
Yeah, anywhere from half to a quarter. Smallest one would be this year's probably a quarter acre, and then up to an acre.
Right.
And and with the box blinds and the bale blinds, we're actually kind of.
And what are you planting in those?
We plant a mixture of brassicas, radishes, turnips, and rape, and that's
green plots.
Green plots. Yeah, we've had a lot of luck with those, and we can plant them, typically they're pretty hardy. You can plant those
Right.
type of food plots, and
And they'll grow even in dry
yes,
conditions.
like right now it's super dry down there, but I know if we just get a rain today,
Boom.
a decent rain, they're gonna explode, and they don't take as much. Like we've actually, it was funny because it's been a few years, but we spilled some of the seed in our driveway by where we would park to go hunting, and the turnips grew up through the rock,
So you
in the
just hunted
driveway.
right out of your car.
Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, I just stayed right there.
I knew that there was something about you. I just couldn't
Yeah,
peg it.
yeah. So, yeah, we've been utilizing honestly trail cameras and food plots to really move in early October on them.
That's a great. I mean, hey, that's a great point. Again, you mentioned green fields. I always say, hunt when it's warm, go green. When it gets cold, go to the grains.
Yep.
And that's what we plant a variety of stuff up here. We plant soybeans and corn for that November period into that late season stuff, and then we use that to hold the deer all winter. But we also go to the green stuff and we use those in more of our kill plots like you do. We plant our clovers and our alfalfas, and we'll also do the brassicas as well. Plant a lot of evolved shot plot and pro-grays and a lot of those turnip blends.
Yep.
And we're planting them right now during this August period and letting those plots, they grow quick.
Yep.
And we want them about knee high when our growing season ends here. First
When
part
is
of
that
September.
usually?
About the first part of September, it
Okay.
starts to really cool down here, get cold nights, and that's when the growing kind of halts.
So your plots are looking pretty good right now.
Ours are looking wonderful. They're really, we've had the right. I watch rain. I'll look at the radar and say, okay, looks like we're gonna get rain tomorrow, so we'll get out and we'll work it up and plant it and cultipack it, and not get hopefully a nice easy rain that don't wash off the seed or wash away the seed. And within a couple days, it's already up and growing. And we just went and looked at one, yesterday, and I mean it's already up, to about your calf. And,
Oh, wow.
And it's just lush. I mean,
Yep.
and that's providing a lot of that protein source for the deer. It's very palatable. I don't like to get it in too early because then it gets stemmy and it gets kind of tough. It's
Yep.
kind of like buying lettuce at the store that's been wilted, and
Yeah.
it's not like you're eating nice, crisp, cold, succulent, salad. Like,
Yep.
and then you pour salad dressing on it, it makes it even better. And I think that I always equate like you get in an evening where it's cool and a little rainy, and it makes that plant wet, and the deer, they just pound those green sources, and that's one of my favorite places to get set up. And I mean, if you've watched Driven, you probably don't even watch Driven, do you?
I've never seen it.
Yeah, sponsor us, but you don't even watch it. That's great. I appreciate
I
it.
watch every episode.
Well,
You
we're
guys
gonna
do.
we're gonna send some episodes home with you today, and we're gonna put you.
There you go.
We're gonna quiz you next week on what's
Yep.
on there, but we've been killing these deer early season, these big bucks, and it's some of it like about 4 or 5 years ago on a particular piece. I had clover and alfalfa planted in there, and the deer actually, it came out of his bedding area, and Nicole was set up in a small little kill plot, and he walked right underneath her, and she had already laid claim to this deer. And I told my cameraman, that deer comes out, I'm killing it.
The one. So that's the one you shot last year.
No, that was a couple years
Okay,
earlier. It was
okay.
another booner. It was a giant, biggest one we had on the property at the time. But Nicole's like, that's my deer.
Yep.
That's the one I want to go after this year.
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah, they always do that.
Yeah,
It's
they
funny
do.
how they do that too. But I told her, I said, I'm not going to be around that long on this earth. You got a few more years on you, so you can take second seat, and I'm going to shoot first. So that's the way I always. That's my excuse.
okay. That's now. I might try that.
You
this
might
year.
try that one, yeah.
We'll see if it works.
Yeah, I seen your wife's been killing some big ones too. Last year she shot a giant.
She shot a really good one, early season too, on a green plot. So
That's insane. Anyways, early season. Let's dive into that a little bit more. So, I got these plots. Of course, when I build a kill plot, I kind of incorporate a couple different things to try to lure deer in, not just because of the food source, but I put a water hole in a lot of times right in that food source, and a lot of these kill plots are interior plots. They're
How
back in
big
the
are
timber.
they?
They're from a half an acre down.
Okay.
They're pretty small. They do succumb to a little bit of browse.
That's what I was wondering.
Over browsing, and deer a lot of times will hit those pretty hard before they move out to the bigger stuff. But I protect them. Sometimes we electric fence them. Sometimes we snow fence them. If I got corn or something in the interior there that they would just eat down right away, and or beans, they won't get it a chance to grow. So we'll a lot of times protect that food source and let it mature. Then before hunting season, pull fences down, and that's worked well for us. But the idea is, we put everything we can into that little area because we know that that's going to be an area we're going to draw in deer too. And those plots, the nice part about the plots, the deer don't stay there for a long period of time. A lot of times they kind of hit them right away when they get up from their bedding, where they're bedding in the evening, and they move out and they hit those interiors, and then they move out to a different food source because they move on. So it keeps your hunting pretty fresh, which I really like. It's a real good way to kind of how, even if you have a small little area, you don't own a lot of land, you can still have good hunting because you don't over hunt it and the deer don't feel the pressure.
A lot of times they're not there when you're leaving.
A lot of times they're moved on already.
Yeah, yep.
But that water source will pull them in, and year after year we've shot big deer all throughout the season, but a lot of early season stuff when we can pull them into those little interior plots and they feel very secure, because it's back in the timber. And the only thing about them is they're trickier to plant. You got to deal with shade, and you got to deal with acidic soil.
You just got to fertilize them like crazy. And
we do put some fertilizer on there. We just you got to lime them.
Yeah.
But a lot of that ground is virgin ground. It's very acidic because of leaf matter breakdown. So you got to put about 2 tons of lime on per acre, and you don't want to get it in too deep. You want to go about 2 inches into the soil, and then it'll activate it a lot quicker. And then you got to pull soil samples every year and kind of see where you're at. But we've had great luck using those interior plots. And, hey, you can't argue. You mentioned October lull. We'll talk about that as we segue into hunting the rut. But, the rut is obviously where most everybody always focuses in on, like, to go out and you see a lot more, buck activity because there are a lot of deer on their feet at this period.
It's a fun time of year to hunt for sure.
It is great for calling.
Yeah.
Rattling and stuff obviously works fairly well. You feel better as a hunter, when you're out there and it's cold. And I love the rut. The only bad thing is, you mentioned earlier, you can hit a phase where you can lock down. And that,
I think a lot of the big ones we're hunting are the first ones to go into it.
Right.
So,
right. And that's the way it is in nature.
Yes.
The big ones that are going to do most of the breeding are going to get with those first hot does. And I always say that one of my favorite times to scrape hunt is just a week prior to that happening, because that's when those bucks kind of come out of their nocturnal pattern and they start to move and they start to lay down scrapes. In our area, it's around the 22nd of October is when you start to see a lot of those scrapes, really, those breeding scrapes, I call them primaries, they really start to open up. And if you can kind of key in on those scrapes right at that particular time, when the bucks have not found a hot doe, because they're looking for the hot doe and they're expecting a hot doe to go there and urinate in that scrape, and then they can back trail her and find her. They're in that seeking phase, and scrape hunting can be awesome.
Yeah.
And that, personally speaking, that's one of my favorite times as well to inventory deer. I put my Muddy Pro Cams out, hang them on scrapes, and pretty much every residential buck in the area, you're going to get on there several times, but you're also going to get some non-residential deer that are cruisers, or they're buffer deer that are coming from other properties, and they're looking as well. And perfect time to get a bonus deer.
That's what happened to me this past year too. It was we this one farm is 900 acres, and we kind of just litter it with pro cams. and check them every week. We can drive to basically every camera. We have them on the outskirts where we can just drive right to them. And it was like the 25th of October, mid-afternoon, and it was fairly warm that day, so I wasn't planning on hunting that day. And we went out and, go to camera, and obviously you're checking them as you go. I don't want to wait till I get home.
You take your computer right out there?
Absolutely, I do. Sit there. I think
go
I was
through 'em.
driving, and Taylor was in the passenger seat flipping through cards, and we had this one camera that was kind of just a random area. We threw it up, and this 170-inch deer just randomly showed up. So that was.
I wish I had that problem.
Yeah, it was a nice problem to have.
It's a pretty good problem to have.
And that was like the 24th, 25th, and then we had a cold front come through southern Iowa, like the 27th, 28th, and I moved in, and we had a stand already pre-hung there, and it was probably an hour and a half before dark, and I just love to rattle. I love to rattle big deer, and a lot of people say you shouldn't blind call and everything else, but down where I'm at, I've had really good luck with it.
Right, I love that too.
And I hit the horns together, and it wasn't more than, I could barely even hang them up, and I could hear a deer just crushing in, and it was him.
Really?
Yeah, it was him. So
what'd you think when you saw him? Like, oh my gosh.
yeah, I was like, is this really going to happen? And he got to probably 30 yards quartering two, and he was on my bad side to even, I wasn't going to take that shot anyway, but the tree was between me and him, so he couldn't see me. My friend Blake, who was filming this, his platform was like right here. So that deer is between me and him, and I'm like looking through Blake's feet at this buck. And at that point, I'm like, I'm going to get busted because he circled downwind of us.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's done. I'm done.
That's when you need nose jammer.
Yeah, there you go. I've never used that. I've heard good things about it.
I'll give you some before you take off. Yeah,
perfect.
It's good stuff.
He sat there for maybe a minute, and then he just turned and started kind of quartering away, and I shot him at like 42 yards.
Oh, so you did get the shot right there.
Oh, yeah. I got a shot at 42, and I practiced all summer, so I was confident in that. And he wheeled around and ran back the way he came, and
Did you know he hit him good?
Yeah, I knew right away. I knew like right when I released the arrow.
Crushed him.
I knew he was done, and he made it 30 yards and fell over. So that was, I think, that I was pretty lucky the third day that I hunted last year, and I shot him. So, but I was going back to your bonus buck story.
No wonder Iowa's your favorite state. No, I understand.
I've went all year
3
with
days
that,
and he's done.
I went all year without shooting him before too.
Well, yeah, me too.
So yeah, it felt good. And then it was like 2 days later, and my friend Taylor works here at Muddy. He shot a 191, and then
Taylor's my idol, by the way.
Yeah,
He's shooting way too many big bucks.
he shoots way too many big ones. I do all the work for him though.
That's right. Yeah, you should probably limit him to just antlerless deer from here on out.
Exactly. and then Luke, who works at Muddy, he came down on.
Does everybody at Muddy hunt?
Yeah, all of us do.
There you go. Hey, I mean, that's a good reason to support Muddy in itself. Just all hunters.
Yeah, and we believe in our products and we use them, and that's a lot of, that goes towards our, just trying to be innovative and come out with the best products we can. We're out there in the field using them, so we see what to do to make them better and how to change things and how to consistently just grow as a brand and make the best products we can.
Man, that is so true. I can't tell you how much that means and how much further ahead Muddy is because they have authentic people in the space. I mean, we deal with lots of different companies, and I'm puzzled when sometimes you deal with companies that people, they're not hunters. They don't even understand hunting, and they're controlling, an outdoor company that sells product to hunters. It's kind of crazy to me in that respect. But it is cool to be able to call you and say, hey, bounce questions off you and this and that about products and stuff like that, because you can then reference your hunting experience and what works for you and that kind of thing. And of course it relays all the way back to all the products you have in your line. I mean, you don't have anything gimmicky. You got stuff that works. That's so important when it comes to selling product to the consumer.
The gimmicky products, they just don't last. At the end of the day, they just don't last. I mean, they come in and they're gone as quick as they come in. So there's a reason that, the Queering family's been in the tree stand business for a lot of years.
Right.
And Now we're like, we've moved into the box blind lineup. We're doing trail cameras. I mean, bail blinds.
Yeah,
all
you guys are
kinds of
just
things.
yeah, you got a lot more going on. Of course, you acquired Muddy a couple years back and kind of folded the big game stuff into the entire Muddy. It became a Muddy line.
So basically, we still do the big game. We still have the big game line, and what we envision that line of is that's a good brand, and then we've got the Muddy that's even the more high end brand. So
Right.
we still have both, and we're proud of both of them. They both have their own products and their own uses. They hit different price points. There's guys out there that they laugh at spending money on a hard-sided blind. Why? There's other guys that have no problem with that. There's guys that they might only be able to hunt a few days a year, so they want to buy a lesser priced stand.
Yeah, they just don't have the budget to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yep.
guys,
And we want to relate to everybody.
I've been there, and it's not easy to sometimes have $50 to go spend on a
100%.
hang-on stand. And I remember the day when I only had one hang-on stand, and of course, if I wanted to hunt somewhere else, I had to take it down, move it, and that kind of thing. And now I got a couple of them, thanks to you guys. But it's again so true.
I can tell you though, even that guy who's spending not as much money is still going to have a good product at the end of the day, and he can
And
still have that
reuse it
going.
for many years.
Yes,
I still
exactly.
have some of the very first big game stands that I have. Of course, they're steel stands. They'll last forever. I mean, they are not going to rot away.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to replace the straps and, of course, check them over for safety purposes. But, those stands will last forever.
Yep.
Just, the squirrels might chew the foam off the seat and stuff like that. But there's a lot of them that are still in trees out there that I put there since day one, and they're just in they're in that magical spot, that there's no reason to ever take them down. Just get back in there and trim them out and check them over. I think that's another thing that, since we're on that subject, and I don't want to keep bouncing all over the place, but just though I think we've always been an advocate, of course, of tree stand safety and practicing the utmost safety stuff, because you owe it to your family, your friends, and your family to always come back, safely. And of course, when you guys started making, the safety harnesses and stuff like that, we started using the Muddy brand. And I mean, this is a system that it's just lightweight. It's, you don't even notice you have it on.
Easy
But
to
it's
get on
gonna-
and off.
It's going to save your life.
Yes, especially and everybody should be using safe lines as well. So then you're
Right.
tied in.
And
from
they
the
never used to
time.
have that. I remember the
Yeah.
day when we had a tree belt and we thought that was the thing. I mean, if you did fall out, I guess we would have just hung there by our
Yeah.
waist.
Yep.
Probably cinched us up a little bit. But now, like you mentioned, you got a safe line that comes all the way from the top, from up where your stand location is, all the way to the base, and you clip in, and as you climb, you're still
You should always
all
have
attached.
3 points of contact the whole way up. And
That's right. That's a
you
good
know,
point.
when you-
3-point.
Yep. And then when you go to hang the stand in the first place, be using your lineman's belt, and you should never. It doesn't matter if it's a foot off the ground. You should always be tied in, and we make the products to do that. There's a lot of great products out there that do that. It's just there's no excuse. Everybody should go home at the end of the day to their family.
Right, and I have some friends that have fallen out of trees. Mike McCabe, you know him. He fell out of a tree up in Canada, bear hunting, and just wasn't practicing. Didn't have a safety harness on. And
Yeah.
that it can happen in a blink of an eye, and sometimes when you're least expecting it. And a lot of people, of course, fall if they don't have they don't have the lifeline, or they're not practicing. They fall on the way up or way into the stand or out of the stand, and it's when you least have that most points of contact. And
that's why we make the products that we do. We want everybody to, at the end of the day, go home to their family. And
right, and I think that's, ladder stands. You guys have done ladder stands. A lot of people have went to ladder stands over the course of time, where they used to have hang-ons. And as our hunting populace ages and gets older, it's not as easy to climb in and out of these things as it is getting in a ladder stand. And ladder stands become much more used by a wide variety of hunters. Very comfortable, of course, for young and old to get in. And boy, back in the day, you didn't see a lot of ladder stands out there, but there's certainly a lot being manufactured now, and some really comfortable ways to go in that portion. But I think one of my favorite things that really has transpired as of late, and you mentioned it here earlier, is how you guys got into building the blinds,
Yes.
and now are become a real prominent source for these permanent blinds. And I'll tell you right now, after using the Muddy Bull blinds, and I'm excited about the new stuff coming out. These things are the cat's meow when it comes to hunting out of, for lots of different reasons, and we'll dive into that. But if you haven't hunted out of these permanent blind structures, it's kind of the wave of the future, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely the way that a lot of things are going. I think that once people hunt out of them once, then they realize that it's not just about being comfortable. There's so many more advantages to them, especially when you get into insulated blinds like what we make. And I believe we're one of the only companies in the market that makes an insulated blind right now, and that just makes a huge difference with not only your noise. We've all been in those blinds where if you drop something, it sounds like a grenade went off. That doesn't happen in ours. So you got noise control, you got thermal control, and scent control, and
that's huge.
That's honestly the reason I hunt out of them right now, because a deer's number one defense is his nose, and a lot of the places that we hunt, we may have the perfect wind when we go in, and even if the wind's not swirling, but in the evening, especially early when we're hunting those green plots, is when we noticed it last year. Quick little story, I'll just go through it really quick, but we had a bail blind on this little food plot, and we knew, and our access was good, and we had a perfect wind. We knew there was a buck that we had photos of for 3 years, and he was a fully mature, just old buck, and he started moving in daylight on this plot. So we moved in on him, and we had a perfect wind, and he came out, and it was October 4th, and just like it does a lot of the times, that wind starts to die towards the end of the evening, and our thermals dropped, and it wasn't 10 minutes of light left and the whole field cleared. So Taylor was actually filming me that night, and we talked about it, and we said, you know what, like, we got to move a box blind in here. So we moved a box blind in there, and that's when my wife shot that big one. And,
Yeah.
And if you keep
That's
the windows
insane.
closed,
Yep.
you can get away with anything
Oh, yeah.
in those things.
It's amazing.
So you don't have to worry about when the thermals drop. If you can get to that blind and the wind switches on you, and I'm never going to tell people like, hey, like, go hunt with the wrong winds, obviously. But there's times where it will happen, and there's times where, you might have a food plot right here, and there's not a such thing as a perfect wind. There might be a better wind, but you don't know necessarily where that buck's going to come from. Or
Deer's
those deer are
coming
gonna
from
come
every direction.
So from those regards, don't get me wrong, they're super comfortable. I mean, I love that part of them. It's nice in the wintertime. It's nice when it's colder out. Just from a thermal control aspect, it's great. But the number one reason I think that a lot of people are starting to switch to them is because they're realizing that they can get away with marginal winds. They can get away with deer that circle downwind. They can really fool a deer's nose with these things. And if you can do that, then it just gives you such an advantage.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's a big reason why we believe in them as well. Of course, they're safe. They're very safe
Yes.
to get in and out of. But we use these things so much because we take the kids hunting, and it allows them to have a much more pleasurable experience, I guess you might say, versus if they were being out there in the elements when maybe it's late season when it's colder and you can't, get into a tree stand. It's going to be kind of miserable.
They kind of spoil you.
Yeah, hey, I am getting older, man.
Yeah.
I need to be a little bit more spoiled, but I mean, I remember the day when my dad, we would build these fortresses in the trees, out of wood and make a, kind of something similar, only it never had any type of scent control or, you couldn't contain your scent because it was just open aired. It,
Yep.
had a roof system to keep the elements off you. But now, I mean, these things, you're never going to get wet. You're going to stay warm because, like you said, they're insulated, but the the fit and finish is what I'm most impressed with the Muddy blinds. And I've sat in pretty much every one that's made because we hunt with a lot of outfitters. They have a lot of different brands. Not trying to, blow smoke where I shouldn't here, but I'm just saying that after you guys really started putting these things out and kind of tweaked them a little bit here and there, the fit and finish to the window systems and the quietness and the seal that these things get, and the longevity with the outer, the finish on the outside and the roof systems. I mean, these are going to last you a long period of time. Of course, they set on a 12-foot steel frame, for the bulls and stuff.
10 foot.
Or are they 10-footers?
Yep, we have 5 and 10-foot options. And we got multiple options.
Seems like
for
they're
the blinds
higher
now.
to me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I thought they were 12-foot.
Yep, 10-footers.
Anyways, you're sitting up there, get you, a higher vantage point where you can see a lot of times into those, over those crop fields and stuff like that. We got them set out all throughout our properties, and we move ours around. Sometimes we might set it here one year and move it over to a different food source for the following year. But they have really changed the way we hunt, and I can't stress that enough. I know that they're kind of expensive initially, but they pay for themselves so fast, considering that the odds of, increase your odds so much by not having to go out there time and time again and mess up on things. Again, there's so many ways they benefit you, whether it's scent control, being warmer, sitting longer, you're not froze to death, that kind of thing. I think that's just so crucial, and I can't say enough about them. And we're also excited because you guys, if it's new for Muddy this year, is you're coming out with a new Penthouse series, which is even bigger. How big is that? And tell me about it.
Yeah, so the Penthouse, everybody knows about our bull. Our bull is the 6x6. And then
and that's pretty big. I can get
big,
myself and a camera and a tripod and 2 of my kids in there, and we're still pretty comfortable.
Yeah. So we took that and we basically, the name, fits itself. We made it what we call the Penthouse, and it is about 25% larger than the bull. It has, larger windows, horizontal windows.
I like that.
Which I really like that as well.
Because now you can shoot out of that center window. You can shoot a bow and arrow and not have to use your side windows like the bulls had the vertical windows before. But now you can shoot out of every window in this blind. Right? The front window.
And I've shot deer out of the horizontal windows in the bull, but it's just the one thing about the Penthouse is the size is double, so the window size is double. It's all still one hand operable, silent windows, residential glass. So all that stuff's good, but the main thing is it's larger. If you got a bunch of kids, you can hang out in there. If you're into filming your hunts, it's great for that. The larger windows, like I said, are huge. It still has all the, I guess the same meat and potatoes as the bull and the gunner as far as thermal scent, noise control. So
we got one of those gunner blinds too. They're nice, but it's more of a single person.
It's perfect for
a gun hunter,
for a gun hunter or a crossbow hunter.
Yeah. What do they kind of retail for?
So
the gunners.
The gunner's gonna depend on. So I mean, you can get it on without a base, with a 5-foot tower, with a 10-foot tower. But if you go to gomuddy.com or call any dealer near you, you'll be able to find out the retail on all of those. But right around, depending on what you get, $1,600 to $1,900. I mean,
well, that's still a pretty good deal. You can't get nothing nowadays for that kind of price that's had any quality.
And actually, Taylor, I think it's less than that. Taylor, what is that retail on that?
That'd be $14.99.
$14.99 without a tower, or is that?
Yeah, I just kind of go to so $14.99 basically.
$1,500 give or take, depending what options you pick with it.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, where can they go and find these and look at these?
So
on
you
your site?
you can head to gomuddy.com. Check out all of our products, but check out our blinds. We have a box blind page right there. There's also a dealer locator. So our dealer network is spreading rapidly. We have great dealers all across the country that sell a lot of blinds every year. So if there's not a dealer in your area, you can always give us a call. But otherwise, get a hold of your dealers and the dealers close to you, and you better check them out in person.
That's great information. We so much appreciate you joining us today, talking about big deer, and we wish you all the best with the EHD stuff going on down there, and hopefully you shoot a big buck again, keep me posted on what's happening. We'll get you back here, and we'll talk more big deer coming up down the road. But anyways, we appreciate it again, Chris.
I appreciate you having me here.